My older brother hired a private investigator to dig into my life, apparently to expose me as a failure, but what he uncovered completely contradicted his expectations. Instead, he discovered the reality of my multi-million-dollar success. I grew up in a small, close-knit village with my two siblings, and I am the middle child. In a community where everyone knows everyone else, privacy can be fleeting. My father has always been a hard-working man, practical but emotionally reserved. He is now approaching retirement. My mother, on the other hand, is very different. She has consistently managed the household and upheld the traditional values she was raised with. Both of my parents come from conservative, religious backgrounds. I love them, but I have always felt like I fell short of their expectations. It stings deeply that they appear to see me as the family disappointment. In contrast, my older brother is the family's golden child. By 40, he had settled down, marrying a quiet, reserved woman. They have two sons, who are extremely energetic and enthusiastic about sports, especially the rough-and-tumble kind. My brother seems to believe it's his responsibility to guide me through life. He works at a local car dealership as a salesperson, but his attempts to mentor me often feel more like managing a project he can't control, as if I'm always in need of direction and should be grateful for whatever advice he offers. He frequently paints an idealized picture of his life, mentioning his athletic children, his powerboat, his ATVs, and his perfect house, often making it clear that my life pales in comparison. This dynamic leaves me feeling even more isolated. I was the sensitive child at school, prone to tears and easily overwhelmed when things didn't go as planned. I wasn't athletic or tough, and I struggled socially. As a result, I was often teased and excluded from activities. Having asthma made me feel even more different, yet my parents never treated it as a significant medical concern. I have also struggled with depression for as long as I can remember. I was never the kid who could sprint down a field or throw a football accurately. My parents often compared me to my older brother, emphasizing how I wasn't as capable, social, or intelligent. School was difficult. I graduated high school with a 2.5 GPA. I saved some money and enrolled in college, but I left in my second year, sparking a family controversy. My younger sister, in contrast, was the family's princess. I haven't been very close to her since leaving home as a teenager. Now, as an adult, I see her as a somewhat spoiled but not malicious person. She married young at 19, had a beautiful wedding, and now has 3 children. I tend to relate to her middle child, perhaps because we share the middle child experience. She is teased often, and her struggles feel familiar to me. After leaving college, I embraced my shy, nerdy side. I worked at a comic book and video game store in our community, which I genuinely loved. Although the store closed over 7 years ago, my parents still act as though I work there. The best part of that job was meeting another geek with big ambitions. Together, we founded a successful IT support company. Eventually, my business partner decided to sell our company to a larger corporation. I was bought out with cash and stock options, which worked out very well. I started several side projects and made several wise investments, many of which were highly profitable. While I try not to boast, my assets now exceed $1 million. Currently, I work as the CTO for a small, private startup. Despite my wealth, I live modestly. My 2-bedroom home is furnished with used items, and I drive a 15-year-old Saturn. I am currently single and maintain a busy schedule, including regular therapy sessions. I also deal with issues like occasional drinking, which my parents dismiss as entirely mental. Despite the challenges, I have built a thriving career in the face of adversity. Every Sunday, my parents expect me to join them for dinner. Their home is across the state, making travel 90 to 120 minutes each way, which consumes a significant portion of my weekend. Yet, they continue to expect me to be available, even as an unmarried adult with what my brother frequently refers to as mental issues. These dinners are often tense. I receive unsolicited advice about marriage, family, and how to be a proper adult. Alternatively, I endure long conversations about my brother's latest car sale, the centerpiece of their discussion. While they never explicitly call me a freeloader, the implication is always there if I skip these gatherings. I frequently question why I continue attending, a topic I bring up with my therapist.
My family has a tendency to downplay or misrepresent my achievements. Back home, they still believe I work at the old comic store.
My brother was always viewed as more competent and outgoing, with a successful career, while my past retail work became a target for ridicule.
My genuine expertise in technology is often dismissed or overshadowed.
My brother frequently interrupts me, pretending I know nothing, and I hesitate to correct him, fearing they won't value my accomplishments. I have had my struggles and, at times, been a mess, but everything changed last month.
My brother somehow accessed my personal information.
He had hired a private investigator under the pretense of verifying my employment. I suspected he was planning an intervention with my parents, and they were completely unprepared for what the investigation revealed. They discovered my real financial status, the fact that I don't live in a rundown apartment, and other private details. Ironically, I was able to trace the source of the intrusion because of my security background, receiving alerts about unauthorized credit checks.
Everything clicked into place.
Upset by the breach of privacy, I had the same agency investigate my brother. The findings were shocking. He was living well beyond his means, had previous arrests for DWI and public intoxication, a history of domestic disturbances, difficulties managing 3 mortgages, and problems with the IRS. His credit was in shambles.
In contrast, my parents lived modestly and realistically.
I focused on preparing to confront my family at the next dinner, anticipating a tense showdown, and hadn't even considered my sister's life. The dinner, however, was far stranger than I imagined. My parents began treating me with an almost reverent respect, as if I were now the golden child. The sudden shift unsettled my brother.
He tried to reclaim attention by boasting about recent sales and a supposed promotion.
I congratulated him politely while subtly referencing his financial troubles and overstretched credit.
The mood was bleak. The sudden upheaval of family dynamics felt unnatural and forced.
Initially, my brother denied everything when I presented the report. But I reminded him that hiring the agency to investigate me had inadvertently validated its findings. That small satisfaction lasted briefly. My parents, who had long pressured him to mentor me, were equally stunned. The report required my social security number, making the situation particularly invasive.
Watching my family's greed and weaknesses laid bare increased my resentment.
As arguments erupted, I mostly stayed quiet, occasionally responding with short, nonchalant comments. My sister, her husband, and their 5 children watched in shock as our usually uneventful dinners descended into chaos. Old resentments resurfaced, with fingers pointed across the table, and 30 years of family grievances came into the open. While it was validating to see my negative perceptions confirmed, I also felt a sense of sadness.
I realized I hadn't handled the confrontation perfectly.
Even though my brother's actions were wrong, exposing his mistakes also implicated his children, which I hadn't intended. His outbursts, including the harsh comment that I should never have been born, were shocking, but my parents' frantic attempts to calm him were even more revealing. Throughout the following hour, accusations flew, often directed at me for things I had no knowledge of. My parents implied I had neglected to help a sick niece or nephew, a claim I could not verify. I chose not to challenge these fabrications, instead reminding them I no longer worked at the comic store, which they had somehow rewritten into the family narrative. I drove home feeling frustrated and burdened. I now worry that my parents, aware of my wealth, may expect financial assistance. I also understand and appreciate that they provided for my basic needs as a child, but navigating gratitude, resentment, and setting new boundaries will be complicated. I anticipate discussing this at length with my therapist.
It is clear that establishing firm boundaries moving forward is critical.
My childhood was difficult. I was never the favorite, my brother's behavior went unchecked, and my parents dismissed verbal abuse. This neglect was profoundly damaging. I've grown weary of defending myself. Although I love my family, I feel the need for permanent distance. I wish them well, but a new chapter without them feels necessary. If I eventually find a partner and have children, integrating them with my family could be complicated, and I am already contemplating how best to handle it. Before reading my story, let me offer some advice. Your family does not define your worth. If they only want you around to bolster their ego or take advantage of your success, the problem lies with them, not you. You are a diligent, good-hearted individual who has endured unfair treatment.
Focus on your own life and protect your privacy. Maintain communication with your therapist while creating a life unencumbered by toxic family dynamics. Avoid unnecessary interactions, consider relocating if possible, and start fresh. Difficult choices are common when dealing with family, especially in romantic contexts. When the time comes to start your own family, you will navigate these challenges in your own way. Practical steps: place a security freeze on your credit accounts. If your brother used company resources to obtain information about you, notify the relevant parties. The dealership is unlikely to condone fraudulent behavior. Speak to an attorney right away. Even though you're still young, unexpected things can happen. If something were to happen to you, your assets would legally go to your parents as your default next of kin. If you'd prefer someone else to inherit what you've built, make sure that's clearly documented as soon as possible. Find a good therapist too, because as you distance yourself from your family, there will be moments of grief and loneliness. Having a professional to talk to will help you process all of it in a healthy way. Update. After that explosive dinner argument, driving home felt like escaping a war zone. The night roads were quiet, but my thoughts were anything but. By the time I pulled into my driveway, one truth had crystallized in my mind: something had to change. If I wanted to protect my sanity, I had to stop showing up for those family dinners. The following weeks became all about healing mentally and emotionally. My house, cluttered with comic books and old tech gear, became my retreat. I also started going to therapy more often, trying to figure out how to create space from my family without cutting ties completely. Dr. Bennett, my therapist, helped me in ways that surprised me. Instead of teaching me to build walls, he helped me build boundaries strong enough to protect me, but flexible enough to breathe through. As the weather got warmer and the weeks passed, my mind began to wander towards something I hadn't considered in a long time: the idea of a relationship. I started to believe that meeting someone wonderful wasn't just possible, but inevitable. And then, almost like something straight out of a comic book, Ava appeared. We met at a tech conference, and her talk on cybersecurity instantly caught my attention, not only because of the topic, but because of her energy. She was sharp, funny, kind, and carried herself with quiet confidence. She understood boundaries and love in equal measure. Soon enough, one question began to loom in my mind: how do I introduce Ava to the circus that is my family? We spent several evenings talking it through over pizza, deciding that the best approach was to start small, short, casual get-togethers. To my surprise, Ava offered to help me face it. Our first step was simple, quick coffee visits with my parents. Those initial meetings were tense and awkward. My parents acted overly polite, as if one wrong word might send me running again. My brother, on the other hand, seemed lost for words, torn between anger and confusion. But my sister and her kids were a saving grace. Her middle child, the one I always felt a connection to, took to Ava immediately. We kept these visits brief, in and out like tactical missions. And strangely, it started to work. Over time, my family began to adjust. Maybe they finally realized that this was the only way to keep me in their lives, by respecting my terms. Slowly, their tone softened, and for once, my limits weren't being challenged. As things improved, I began to think long-term again. What would the future look like with Ava? Could we build something that wasn't chained to the dysfunction of my past? One warm summer evening, while walking by the lake, Ava and I talked about moving in together. The thought hit me how far I'd come from being the overlooked middle child to someone who could finally stand tall and build a life on his own terms. The contrast felt like night and day. For the first time in years, I feel genuinely hopeful about what lies ahead. I know there will still be rough patches, emotional potholes waiting to trip me up, but I finally feel prepared to face them. Setting boundaries with my family after Ava came into my life wasn't about shutting people out. It was about making space for healthier connections and a future that actually feels mine. These days, those infamous Sunday dinners still happen, but only when I choose to attend. Sometimes I go, sometimes I don't. When I do, Ava comes with me, and afterward we talk through whatever tension arises. There are still cracks, but the chaos isn't consuming me anymore. I'm learning to balance staying connected without being controlled. Hi everyone, I'm still getting used to posting online, so bear with me. Let me introduce the key people and what's happening next. I'm the narrator. Peach is our daughter, Mario is our son, and Daisy is my soon-to-be ex-wife. We're currently trapped in a messy, drawn-out divorce that's quickly becoming ugly.
Daisy and I are splitting mainly because she came to terms with her bisexuality earlier this year. She told me she wanted to open our marriage. I tried to stay calm, but deep down, I knew I couldn't handle that kind of relationship. Things spiraled when I discovered she'd already slept with one of my closest friends, who also happens to be my coworker. As a police officer, it felt like being betrayed by both my home and my workplace. After that, reconciliation was impossible. At first, Daisy seemed desperate to fix things, but when she realized I wouldn't agree to an open marriage, she flipped. The kindness vanished, replaced with anger and manipulation. I could feel her resentment growing, and I feared she'd start using our children as weapons. Sadly, that's exactly what happened. Daisy began telling Peach that I didn't love them anymore, that I was breaking the family apart. Hearing my daughter repeat that lie broke something in me. She and Mario now spend time at Daisy's mother's house, where Daisy lives with her new partner, let's call him AP. Whenever the kids visit, Daisy and AP turn it into some over-the-top playdate full of gifts and treats, trying to be the fun parents. Meanwhile, I'm the strict one. The boring one. The villain in Daisy's story. She's even started twisting my words to the kids, trying to make them believe I'm cruel or indifferent. Peach and Mario now ask things like, "Why don't you like AP?" or "Mom says AP loves us more than you do." Hearing that feels like being stabbed in slow motion. A few weeks ago, I was working long hours on a big case, trying to earn a promotion from patrol officer to homicide detective. During that stretch, Daisy and I agreed the kids would stay with her full-time until the project ended. When I arrived to pick them up for the weekend, Mario looked up at me, teary-eyed, and asked, "Are you taking us away because you hate us, like Mom said?" It was one of the hardest moments of my life. I knelt down, hugged him tight, and told him how much I loved him. But it's been strange since then. My last visit with them felt empty. They were quiet. Distant. It was like they didn't know how to act around me anymore. Today, when I picked them up again, both look sad and withdrawn. Peach, especially, seems confused. She still loves me but feels guilty for showing it. Daisy's manipulation has started to take root. I can't keep standing by while my kids get caught in this emotional crossfire. This isn't just a divorce, it's psychological warfare. I'm beginning to wonder if I should escalate things legally to protect them. Should I push for custody? Can I do that without making things worse? Because right now, staying quiet feels like surrendering them to someone who's slowly poisoning their minds. Comment. Tell your divorce lawyer everything. What Daisy is doing is called parental alienation, and it's extremely damaging. Judges take it seriously once it's documented, though enforcement can be tricky. Start gathering proof immediately, texts, emails, anything showing her attempts to turn the kids against you. Keep all legal channels open, file motions if necessary, and document every incident. Daisy's behavior is manipulative and harmful, and it will only escalate if unchecked. Make sure your attorney knows every detail, and if her actions begin to harm the children's emotional or mental health, get CPS involved. You may also want to have your kids evaluated by a child psychologist to help them process what's happening. Whatever you do, don't ignore it. This is no longer just a fight between exes. It's about protecting your children. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a comment, hit subscribe, follow for more, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next one.